Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Getting to Know Your NCBA Leaders. Today, we are chatting with Tom Canary, our president-elect. So, thank you, Tom, for joining another episode of NCBA's Coffee Break. I'm Nathan Willner, the host of this podcast, and I'm just excited to have you here today.
I appreciate the opportunity.
So, let's dive right in. Why is serving as an NCBA leader such an important part of your professional life, and how does it affect your law practice?
NCBA, from its inception, has been the only association for attorneys that do what we do. That's why it's been so important to me. Now, personally, I've also had a bent towards the educational portion of trying to teach our members things to do, things not to do. And again, when you went to your state bar associations and the like, you didn't see any education for what we did. So that was the prime mover for my getting in. But as the many years have gone by, it is just a pleasure dealing with all of the law firm members and attorneys from those law firm members and our association, all working towards a common good, and also to educate those about what we do versus what we don't do.
Uh, that kind of puts it together as to what draws you to NCBA. But even stepping back, what drew you to the practice of creditors' rights law?
Well, that's an interesting question. I was getting out of law school, and between my second and third year of law school, I applied for a clerking job. And it happened to be with a firm then known as Maypother and Maypother that did a substantial amount of creditors' right work, including the recovery work. And I got hired on as a law clerk after many communications with the gentleman that eventually hired me. And that's where I started out. And as I got into it, I really found that I truly enjoyed it. Probably, not even probably, because I got to look at so many different areas of the law that are involved with creditors' rights work, including the recoveries work. And they hired me on as a law clerk. They hired me on as associate. And many, many years later, I was actually an owner in the firm. So there you go.
No, so that's a great background, and I think also you point on you touch on a point where many people think that creditors' rights law is very basic, and it really is multifaceted. Everything from constitutional law to bankruptcy law is covered within this discipline. So thanks for touching on that. Talking about the your law practice, um, tell me about your law firm. How large is it? How many states are you in? Tell me what kind of practice is it?
Sure. Keith D. Wiener and Associates has 15 attorneys. We're in Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, and West Virginia and Wisconsin. The office in Wisconsin is smaller, and we do a limited amount of work in that office. But it is a full creditors' rights firm. We do bankruptcy work, everything from the easy Chapter 7 all the way up to a Chapter 11. We do the recoveries, the debt collection. We do the replevins, foreclosures, defense work, a little bit of everything. And when I left my last firm and came over to this firm, it was because I had the opportunity to really advance the the, the collection work.
So
And it's always been a love of mine.
yeah, so these are really two questions. How long have you been part of NCBA, and what's the best advice you ever received?
My law firm was at inception back in 1992, was at the inception of the NCBA. And again, I mentioned before is Maypother. Bill Maypother came back and was telling me about this organization. And he told me, he said, you should get involved. And that's what started it. I guess to answer your other question, there were a couple of things. One thing that Bill did teach me, he said, you as an attorney have an obligation not only legally, but as an attorney to educate the bench. Bill was a juvenile attorney on that particular bench for a while, and he said, "Don't expect the judge to understand or know every issue of the law you have coming forward." So I guess the part two to that is, if I were to tell anybody, give anybody a piece of advice, I said, be a student of the law, understand the law. Just because you've looked at the same statute over and over and over again, don't make the mistake of not going back and looking at it. And if you've done this as long as I have, all of a sudden a comma or a semicolon that you haven't noticed before, all of a sudden becomes very, very important. And then I guess the best piece of advice I got for my NCBA involvement is the first time I ran for the board, I lost miserably. We as attorneys are a bit competitive, so I was taking it kind of hard, and I had some of the stalwarts of our industry. The names that come to mind are Ira Liebsker and Harvey Sharon, and they said, "Don't give up. Don't give up. Get involved. Get involved with the committee. Do the work, and moreover, find something that you'd like to do. Don't get involved just to be getting involved. Find something that in the organization that you really enjoy." And that's how I kind of landed in the education stuff.
That's great advice. I mean, obviously, you need to be passionate about things that you work on, and it definitely comes across in the end product. So, you talk about the human touch and how important it is, the attorney as the educator and dealing with the bench. But now we have a whole new thing called AI. So I'm just curious to know, artificial intelligence, how have you seen that change the practice of law and within your firm?
The firm is adapting it slowly, and I don't mean slowly, cautiously, I guess is a better word that I should use. I think that it is a tool. I think it can be a powerful tool. I also think it's a tool that can be misused for AI, from a standpoint of making sure that you get somebody that's calling in your office to the right person and get them there quickly, or to even make payment arrangements or something along those lines. I think it could be a wonderful, wonderful tool because it streamlines everything. I also know that there are courts that are requiring a certification on briefs now as to whether you used AI in the preparation of that brief. And most of us who've looked into that have seen that the horror stories of a couple of times. I even think it was a federal court brief that was filed that cited the cases that didn't even exist, and come to find out the person who drafted the brief just relied on AI. So obviously it is an evolving technology, and it will continue to get better. And as long as people use it as a tool and not a crutch or a substitution, then I think it has its place. And that's the evaluation my firm's trying to make.
So we're getting towards the end of our interview, and something I like to ask folks, especially when we're talking about looking back at our careers, is what advice would you give a third-year law student?
Well, I harken back to the one comment I made before about becoming a student of the law. But understand, I would tell a third-year law student that it is a profession. It's a way, obviously, to earn a living, but it should be an advocation for you as well. Uh, it can be grueling. It can be tough. There are a lot of long hours. There are a lot of pressures. Make sure you're in an area of the law that you enjoy. Make sure that you remember that no matter the case, that there are people involved and emotions, and what might be a case to you might be something that is keeping the person on the other side of the case up nights and weekends. And represent your clients well, but do it humanistically.
I think that's keeping the empathy there is so key to
Yes.
everything we do. So that wraps up our conversation. Tom, excited that you're coming in as president-elect of NCBA. Going to be a lot of great stuff coming down the pike. So we're excited to see how your administration takes NCBA to the next level. And to our listeners, we hope you enjoyed this episode of getting to know your NCBA leaders. Stay tuned for more interviews with our dedicated leaders who are making a difference in the legal community and in the creditors' rights legal community. So with that, thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Nathan Willner for NCBA Coffee Break, and have a great day.